Kal Kadosh, Boker Or Bekiim Bahalacha, day 72. Okay, this is page 217, Halacha Gimel. Okay, fine. We're talking about now responding to Kaddish. So he says like this. You have to have kavanah for Kaddish. It's imperative to concentrate on the meaning of one's words when he's responding to Kaddish. Especially since Chachamim say, the heaven will rip up any sentence of punishments, right? For anyone who responds, Amen Shemena Ba, Bechol Kocho. That he shouldn't even explain the words Bechol Kocho to me with all his concentration, exerting every part of his body, even though it's a machloket actually, Rashi and Tosfot. One must not simply respond the words without bothering to think of their meaning. Therefore, it is important to pay attention to the words of the Kaddish as the cantor recites them, so that the Amen responses will sincerely echo the Kaddish sentiments. Above all, one must also take care not to engage in any discussion while Kaddish or Kiddusha are being recited. Okay, so look at number 383. He says here, this is a ruling of the Mishabura citing the Mesechet Derech Eretz. Right, this passage is cited in the Bet Yosef Siman 125. Rabbi Chama discovered Eliyahu Navi leading thousands of camels loaded with anger and wrath. Af v'chema, yeah, which would punish those who speak during Kaddish. And the pasuk says, "You did not call upon me, Yaakov. You made me worry, Israel." Right, v'lo tikrat Yaakov. Right, he says over here, refers to those people. Sefer Chassidim relates that a devout Jew once had a vision of a devout colleague who passed away some years before, and he saw his man's face. The face was distorted in anguish. So he asked him, "What is it? Why are you so pained?" He said, "This happened to me because I used to could speak while the Chazan was saying Vaychulu Hashamayim on Magen Avot on Friday nights." Meaning on Friday nights he was speaking, right, during the Chazarat Hashatz. The Matea Moshe cited in the Kavachin Sofer cites a midrash relating that a scholar once had a vision of a former Lisbon who passed away, and he noticed a dark stain on the forehead. He asked him, "What does it mean?" So the disciple told him, he said, "This is a symbol of my punishment for not taking care not to converse while the cantor was saying Kaddish." So this is obviously the importance of not saying Kaddish. Okay? Chachamim promised great rewards. Right? They promised So the Chachamim promised great rewards for fulfilling the mitzvah properly, declaring that even if someone was sentenced to suffer for 70 years, this mitzvah can cause them to be sentenced to the right to be commuted. Also, the gates of Gan Eden will be open for them. Right? And conversely, obviously, it's a grave sin to converse with others while saying Kaddish or Kiddusha, right, as well. 384, see the preface of the Siman, list of the rewards. We already mentioned all the rewards, right, that a person gets. In fact, back on the top, in fact, the obligation to concentrate on the words meaning when responding to Kaddish is so great that it is forbidden to even think about Torah thoughts when the Chazan is saying Kaddish. Likewise, we must take great care not to perform any tax, however great or small, while saying Kaddish, since the praise of the mighty kings of kings, blessed be he, and the words represent the Kabbalistic secrets. And this applies equally to the Kaddish recited after Torah Shebichtav or Torah Shebe'al Peh or Mishnayot, which means, right, that it's actually going to be very, very important, this entire concept, because at the end of the day, again, we're talking about, we're talking about the entire concept of not speaking. You heard not speaking during a shiur as well. Yeah, but here we're talking about the thing. Fine. How much Kaddish does this apply to? Okay. So 385 says like this. So how much of the Kaddish does this apply? Because at the end of the day, we just said you're not allowed to even think and learning during Kaddish. So to how much of the Kaddish are we talking about? So Yakut Yosef in the English edition cited the Mishneh Lachot that it is forbidden to wind up the tefillin straps to put them away while answering Amen Shemena Ba. This is, by the way, all the more so when you're saying Kaddish. I've seen people saying Kaddish and they're wrapping their tefillin, putting away their talit, and no. When you're saying Kaddish or answering Kaddish, rien. Shum davar. You're not allowed to do nothing. Yeah, a lot of people, they don't know this halachot, and they go through it. They go against it. So again, one more time, you're not allowed to wrap up your tefillin when you're saying Amen Shemena Ba, but one may do so, right, while listening to the cantor recite Kaddish. So he says, we challenge this ruling, and we concluded this leniency applies while listening to a Kaddish recited the final section of Shachrit, but during a Kaddish recited in the earlier sections of the Kaddish, right, of the Shachrit, it is necessary to stop all activity and listen attentively to Kaddish. After the cantor has completed the half Kaddish, however, it's permissible to wind up the tefillin as cantor recites the balance of the Kaddish, since additional sections are not part of the original Kaddish composed during the Talmudic era. Which means, what he's saying is like this. The first half of the Kaddish, which is, we call it a half, just because, but really, again, remember, we call it Chetzi Kaddish. It's not, that is the Kaddish. It's not really Chetzi. But again, that was just what we started calling it beyachas to everything else. But it really, right? Right? Okay, but it's really be'emet. We call it now chetzi kaddish or kaddish le'ela. Right? But really be'emet, that's the full kaddish. So that part, you're not allowed to do nothing. But the extra parts of the Yishlema and Ali Sel, technically you're allowed to. Because those were the extra parts that were added in later on. Okay? What about reciting one's prayers during Kaddish? Imagine, I'm in the middle of a Leilul Shabeach, right? Or Tfilat Neshamot. And right now they're going to start Kaddish. So can I come and start doing that during the Kaddish? My friend Adam Azrak, right? Nero Yair, asked us, what is halacha when someone falls behind the counter space of the prayers? May he catch up during the Kaddish or not? I answered that according to the Mishnah Berurah, he must stop and listen to the half Kaddish. But then afterwards, he's allowed to continue while he's saying the final parts of the Kaddish. Yeah, well, the final parts of the Kaddish. But the first half, you have to stop. And according to Rav Shmuel Muzam in Orbach, even if someone was not paying attention and is unaware exactly which section of Kaddish he's responding to, he may respond amen to Kaddish. Interrupting Torah learning to listen to Kaddish. Should you interrupt Torah learning to listen to Kaddish? Rav Shmuel Muzam in Orbach ruled that if someone is studying Torah and a congregation nearby is praying, he has no obligation to stop and say Kaddish that the cantor recites. Nonetheless, he should stop to respond to Kiddusha Berechur Modim, since the people will likely notice if he does not respond. Meaning, in the Kaddish, okay, they maybe don't really... But here, if he's there... Now again, we're not talking about the back rooms. In the back room, nobody notices anything anyway. We're talking about there. No, because of the Maritayim. No, but Maritayim. Right? One second. Right? Because of Maritayim. Likewise, he should stop and listen attentively to the Kohanim's blessing for the congregation, even if he participated in that morning earlier that day. All this applies to an individual studying Torah. If a group is studying Torah, they should not interrupt to respond to any of the above. Moreover, this applies when the individual is in the same room. But if he's in a different room, he has no obligation to respond to the congregation's prayers. See the Piskei Teshuvah, the response Kenebosim disagree with these rulings, stating that in every situation you should always respond to whatever he hears from the cantor. So again, here you have a big machloket acharonim. Okay? Number 4. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, anyone who answers the mention of Rabbi b'chol kocho will have that his heaven will rip up his any documents that he has condemned to be punished. The term b'chol kocho means with all one's concentration and feeling, and it means to respond loudly. By raising one's voice, one is better able to arouse one's feelings, and this will nullify the degrees of punishment. Even so, no one should start screaming, right? Sorry, no one should not. How do you read that? No one should not scream the words so loudly.
The not is too much.
Exactly, no one should scream.
No one should scream the word.
I think that's a mistake there. No one should scream the words so loudly that it makes others scorn him. Meaning, if they start going like crazy, man, like, oh, hey, they're gonna tell you off. What are you doing? You understand? Okay, but he's saying, but no one should do it.
You shouldn't be louder than the guy who does Kaddish.
Okay, there's a whole thing there. Yes, we're gonna see the footnote. So the proper balance is to respond in a louder tone than one normally speaks. So that means if you speak like this, so you have to raise the tone, but not screaming. You understand? So that was a mistake, though. That extra note there. I don't know what it said there. Moreover, the people responding must not raise their voices above the chazan. If the person's intention is to inspire those around him, then he may raise his voice above the counter. Meaning, sometimes, people are half asleep. So you wake them up a little bit. And then, okay, so now they're going to answer. That's going to be okay. 386, 387. Rashi, I told you already, you remember, there's machloket Rashi and Tosafot. Rashi comes and he says, Bechol kocho means, Bechol kavanato. The Ri in Tosafot says, that's Bekol Ram, right? Based on a passage in the Psikta. Rabbi Yonah rules that both our interpretations are correct. Certainly one must respond with great feeling concentration, and also for many people this can be accomplished only if they respond loudly and forcefully. Nevertheless, he added, no one should respond so loudly that he invites scorn from others. The Bet Yosef cites the Zohar HaKadosh, and one must respond loudly. Petach David deduces from Rabbi Yonah's commentary that if someone can muster all his feelings and conjure while responding quietly, he does not have to say it loudly. That means if mamash, you could put all your kavanah when you're doing it quietly, you could also do it. But for sure, you should do it a little bit loudly. By the way, sometimes you actually do see it, but sometimes here they do it, you don't even hear them. So it is important, again, louder than a normal voice of talking. Right? That's what we said. Shulchan Aruch ruled that one must respond with all his kavanah with a loud voice. Magen Avraham warned that one should not invite scorn of others. See also comments of the Mamor Mordechai and Petach David. Okay, 387. Right? This is the ruling of the Shurei Knesset HaGdolah that we said that what? That basically you shouldn't respond higher than the voice of the Chazan. Okay? The Aliyah Rabbah Chesed Alafim Ben Ishchai, the Pri Megadim, stated that this limitation applies only to a man that is a response to the cantor's praise of God. The response of a man Yishim Rabbah, however, is not simply a praise, it is a prayer and a request. Meaning, you cannot answer amen louder than the chazan. But Yehesh Shemin Haba, you're allowed to. That's what he wants to say. Therefore, one may respond in a voice louder than the chazan. This is likewise the ruling of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who added that this appears to be the opinion of Rabbeinu Yonah, since he needed to warn us not to raise our voice so loudly that other people are going to scorn us, implying that as long as it is not that loud, we may say it louder than the chazan. It's possible to refute this proof by suggesting that Rabbeinu Yonah's ruling applies in a case where the cantor himself has a beaming voice. Right? Imagine, he's got a voice of, one of these guys over there, opera, whatever, screaming. Right? And if someone responds any louder than that, so firstly he's going to invite scorn. The cantor ought to be loud. So the Kaf HaChaim says, right, that the rule forbidding the congregation to respond louder than the chazan comes to the pasuk Gadulu Hashem iti. You have to grandify Hashem with me. We have to bless him to go together. So that is come together with me, the cantor, but does not drown out my voice. Nevertheless, he added, the cantor must take into account that halacha demands the congregation respond Amen Yeshemir Abba loudly, and therefore he must also make sure to recite Kaddish in a loud, clear voice to enable the congregation to respond loudly without exceeding his volume. Okay?